Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. Wanted to talk about the flag order, how that looks, and kind of why it's like that. There's also a little bit of history on the flags, and I wanted to just kind of go through it, just I guess for awareness more than anything. It's just kind of nice to know and hear a little bit about your specific branch flag and where it is in the lineup and so forth. Before we jump into it, I want to throw on a special thank you to Mike Burton, P2F. Mike Burton, thank you so much for the super comment, super chat thing. I really do appreciate your support so very much. Mike Burton, thank you. All right, so jumping into it, we're going to just first go through the order. Now, the order of flags is the U.S. Army, the Marine Corps, the Navy, the Air Force, the Space Force, and then Coast Guard. Now, that is the order, I don't know, a lot. Most of the time it's that. However, there is a variation, and that variation will move Coast Guard to before the Air Force, after the Navy. It'll go in there. But the only time that happens is when Congress takes the Coast Guard and moves it under the Navy command, thus being DOD ran, I guess. So the Coast Guard is generally, again, in last place in the order, not because of establishment date, but because they are part of the Department of Homeland Security, not the Department of Defense. So it's Department of Defense first, then it's the Department of Homeland Security, unless Congress says, guess what, Coast Guard, we're moving you under the Navy for whatever wartime period we're in, and we need you to support the Navy in whatever sort of way. And if that happens, then you can move the Coast Guard. All right. Another kind of weird thing is the fact that the Marine Corps is before the Navy. A lot of people kind of wonder why that happens. And it really has to do with the consistent establishment of the branch. Now, what I mean here is, I have to sneeze. Bear with me. Nobody wanted to see that sneeze because sometimes when you have all this going on, it's not a pleasant situation. All right, so the Marine Corps is before the Navy flag due to a precedence order established in 1921. This order is based on the founding dates of the service, with the Marine Corps citing its origins from the Continental Marines established in 1775, while the Navy's consistent founding date was later clarified. So, the interesting thing here is, again, the Marine Corps, reaches back to the Continental Marines on November 10th of 1975, but the Navy was also established in 1775. The problem is that it disbanded. The Navy disbanded after the Revolutionary War and was not consistently operating until its reestablishment in the 1790s. This inconsistency is what led to the Marine Corps being considered senior in precedence, which is, again, a kind of a funny thing because the Marine Corps is Department of the Navy and all that whole kind of thing too. So anyway, that is the order. I'm going to also jump into just a little piece that I found here on DLA .mil, and it's just kind of talks a little bit about the precedents and so forth. So if you haven't, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. All right, so let's jump into. Actually, I'm going to skip that one because that really just focused on the Marine Corps. So there's one on va.gov, actually, and it gives a little bit of a breakdown here. So the United States Army, for the U.S. Army, which was founded in 1775, their flag is always placed first. The U.S. Army finds its roots in the Continental Army, which was formed on June 14th, 1775, to fight against British for independence during the American Revolutionary War. Following the war, the Congress of the Confederation created the United States Army on June 3rd, 1784, to replace its disbanded Continental Army. Now, moving on, the United States Army considers itself a continuation of the Continental Army and thus considers its institutional inception to be the origins of that armed force in 1775, much like the Marine Corps, right? The U.S. Army flag displays a blue replica of the War Office seal set on a white field. Beneath the seal is a broad scarlet scroll bearing the inscription in white letters, United States Army. Beneath the scroll in blue Arabic numerals is 1775, the year in which the Continental Army was created, with the appointment of General George Washington as General of the Army. All of this is on a white background. The flag was officially adopted by President Eisenhower on June 12th. That's good morning. June 12th, 1956, via Executive Order 1067. Prior to this date, the Army was the only armed service without a flag. Interesting. That's very interesting. So prior to this date, the Army was the only armed service without a flag, official or otherwise, to represent the entire service. In 1955, prompted by the need for a flag to represent the U.S. Army in a joint service ceremony, Secretary of the Army Wilbur Brucker requested the creation of a flag. The U.S. Army flag was dedicated and unfurled to the general public on June 14, 1956, at Independence Hall, Philadelphia, on the 181st anniversary of the establishment of the Army by the Continental Congress. The original flag measures 4 feet 4 inches by 5 feet 6 inches. The original flag was made of white silk with a blue embroidered central design of the official War Office seal. United States Army is inscribed in white letters on a scarlet scroll with the year 1775 in blue numerals below. United States Marine Corps. In the case of the Marine Corps, even though the U.S. Navy was founded before the U.S. Marines, they have historically referenced their founding date as 1775, shortly after that of the Army. On November 10th, 1775, the Second Continental Congress meeting in Philadelphia passed a resolution stating that 2 battalions of Marines be raised for service as landing forces with the fleet. This resolution established the Continental Marines and marked the birth date of the United States Marine Corps. The U.S. Marine Corps flag went through several changes over the years. Some evidence suggests the flag the Marines carried ashore at New Providence in 1776 was the Grand Union flag, also known as the Continental flag. It consisted of 13 stripes and a Grand Union flag in the top inner corner, thought to be the first American flag. It influenced the 13-star Betsy Ross edition, but was never formally recognized. During the 1830s and into the 1840s, the U.S. Marines used a white flag with gold fringe. The flag consisted of a picture of an eagle with an anchor and the words, "To the shores of Tripoli." Later, when the Mexican-American War ended, they expanded the slogan to say, "From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli." During the Civil War and the Mexican-American Wars, Marines in the field carried the flag that alternated white and red stripes. The United States seal embedded in the canton include a half wreath and 29 stars. Marines carried a version comparable to today's American flag with the words U.S. Marine Corps embroidered in yellow thread with a red stripe in the center by 1876. In 1914, the U.S. Marines carried Old Blue, a blue flag with the Marine Corps emblem that held a globe, eagle, and anchor. Above the emblem was a scarlet ribbon with the title U.S. Marine Corps. Beneath the emblem, a scarlet ribbon was depicted with the Marine Corps motto, Semper Fidelis, always faithful. Officially, adopted in 1918, the colors gold and scarlet represented the Marine Corps, although a flag with those colors was not designed until around 1939. This flag, mostly designed the same as the current Marine Corps flag, included gold fringe and a scarlet field. The Marine Corps emblem is in the center with a banner in the eagle's mouth that said Semper Fidelis. Below the emblem, a large banner reads United States Marine Corps. Today, the official flag of the United States Marine Corps is scarlet with the Corps emblem in gray and gold, and was adopted on January 18th, 1939. Although Marine Corps Order 4 had established scarlet and gold as the official colors of the Marine Corps as early as 1925, the indoor / parade version is bordered by a gold fringe, while the outdoor version is plain. It measures 52 inches on the hoist and 62 inches on the fly. In addition to the multicolored battle streamers measuring 3 feet by 2 plus 2 3/4 inches wide, affixed to the top of the staff itself covered with sterling silver bands engraved with the names of conflicts in which the Corps had been engaged. United States Navy. While the U.S. Navy claims October 13th, 1775 as the date of its official establishment, the Second Continental Congress passed resolution creating the Continental Navy. It was disbanded following the conclusion of the Revolutionary War under President George Washington. Merchant shipping came under increasing threat by pirates in the Mediterranean, and this led to the Naval Act of 1794, which created a permanent standing U.S. Navy. So it was disbanded for a while there. Early in its history, naval ships wore a variety of flags, including the striped Grand Union, and those bearing a pine tree or rattlesnake, which a lot of us are very aware of, the rattlesnake. However, these various banners are generally considered an evolution toward a final flag design rather than forebearers of a specific U.S. Navy flag. Toward the end of the 19th century, the infantry battalion flag was introduced for use by naval landing forces. This was a blue flag with a white diamond-shaped device in the center and a blue foul anchor superimposed on the diamond. For more than 60 years, the infantry battalion flag served as the unofficial Navy flag in drill formations and parades and at other ceremonies. An official Navy flag, which represented the Navy's operating forces at sea, was authorized by an executive order by President Eisenhower on April 24th, 1959. The flag for the United States Navy is 4 feet 4 inches on the hoist, 5 foot 6 inches on the fly, and consists of dark blue material with yellow fringe, 2.5 inch wide. In the center of the flag is a device 3 feet 1 inch overall, consisting of the inner pictorial position of the seal of the Department of the Navy, with within a circular yellow rope edging, all 2 feet 6 inches in diameter above the yellow scroll inscribed United States Navy in dark blue letters. United States Air Force. All right. So while originally formed in 1907 as part of the Army, the U.S. Army Signal Corps, this division was officially focused on dirigibles and balloons. In 1909, the Signal Corps purchased the White Brothers' first heavier-than-air flying machine. And in 1926, the U.S. Army formed the U.S. Army Air Corps, which later changed its designation to the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Army Air Forces in 1941 following the outbreak of World War II. The U.S. Air Force would become its own service branch on September 18th, 1947, with the enactment of the National Security Act. The flag of the United States Air Force was introduced in 1951 and consists of the U.S. Air Force's crest and shield, which itself comprises 13 white stars, and the Department of the Air Force's coat of arms on a field of blue. The 13 stars represent the 13 original British American colonies. The grouping of these of 3 stars at the top portray the 3 departments of the Army, Navy, and Air Force. The crest include the North American bald eagle, and cloud formations depict the creation of a new firmament, and the wreath, which is comprised of the 6 alternate folds of silver and blue, incorporate the colors of the basic shield design. The flag was officially adopted by President Truman on March 26, 1951. Elements of the flag design are used on the Department of the Air Force's seal, as well as the U.S. Air Force service mark. In 1950, a government artist named Dorothy Gatchell was tasked with the design of the flag for the U.S. Air Force, whereas the crest and the shield that are featured on it were done by Arthur Du Bois, chief of the heraldic branch of the Army, who submitted the design to W. Stewart Symington, the first Secretary of the Air Force. The flag's design has remained unchanged since its introduction in 1951. United States Space Force. The U.S. Space Force was established December 20th, 2019, when the National Defense Authorization Act was signed into law, creating the first new branch of the armed services in 73 years. The establishment of the USSF resulted from widespread recognition that space was a national security imperative. When combined with the growing threat posed by near-peer competitors in space, it became clear there was a need for a military service focused solely on pursuing superiority in the space domain. The flag was unveiled on May 15, 2020, in an Oval Office ceremony by Chief of Space Operations General John Raymond and the Chief Master Sergeant of the Space Force, Roger Toberman. The Space Force flag is black, has a black field with the official flag fringe in platinum. The flag is derived from the central and supporting elements of the Space Force seal, including the delta wing, globe, the elliptical orbit, Polaris star, and star clusters. Beneath the central imagery, United States Space Force and the year 2019 in Roman numerals in white lettering, indicating the name and birth year of the service. The white Polaris symbolizes the guiding light of security and alludes to a constant presence and vigilance in space now and into the future. 2 clusters of small stars represent the space assets developed, maintained, and operated by the U.S. Space Force. Last one here, United States Coast Guard. While the Coast Guard flag is typically placed last in the lineup, it cites January 28th, 1915 as its founding date, when it was formed by a merger of the U.S. Revenue Cutter Service and the U.S. Life Saving Service under the Department of Treasury. However, the U.S. Coast Guard traces its roots to August 4th, 1790, which is now celebrated as the official birthday of the Coast Guard, when Secretary of the Treasury Alexander Hamilton lobbied Congress to fund the construction of 10 cutters to enforce tariffs, which was an important source of revenue for the new nation. It should be noted that until the reestablishment of the Navy in 1794, these revenue cutters were the only naval force of the United States. Interesting. So during the disbanded time of the Navy, the Coast Guard was there making it happen. It should be also noted that the Coast Guard flag is displayed in different positions depending on whether the United States is at war or peace. During wartime, the Coast Guard operates under the Department of Defense and is displayed between the U.S. Navy and U.S. Marine Corps flags. During peacetime, the Coast Guard is part of the Department of Homeland Security and it is displayed last. The U.S. Coast Guard is also the only military service branch that is tasked as an authority of law enforcement. Title 14 U.S.C. Section 2 grants law enforcement powers to all Coast Guard commissioned officers, warrant officers, and petty officers, and allows them to carry a firearm both off and on base through, though this is not typical. U.S. Coast Guard personnel can execute and serve orders, warrants, or subpoenas and are allowed to make arrests without a warrant for any offense against the United States committed in the officer's presence or for a felony under the laws of the United States. The origins of the U.S. Coast Guard flag are obscure. An early Coast Guard flag was first flown in 1799 by the Revenue Cutter Service to distinguish its ships from merchant ships. The ensign's design was specified by the Secretary of the Treasury, Oliver Wolcott, and included 16 alternating red and white stripes and the United States arms in dark blue on a white field. The stripes represented the 16 states in the country at the time. It is flown from the ship as a symbol of law enforcement and authority. This is further supported by an 1840 painting which shows the revenue cutter Alexander Hamilton flying a flag very similar to that of today's Coast Guard. This flag, like the Union Jack, appears to be the canton or upper corner of the revenue cutter ensign. A later illustration in 1917 shows the Coast Guard standard as a white flag with a blue eagle and 13 stars in a semicircle surrounding it. Later, the words United States Coast Guard, Semper Partus, were added. After 1950, the semicircle of stars was changed to a circle containing 13 stars. The Coast Guard standard is used during parades and ceremonies and is adorned by the Coast Guard's 34 battle streamers. The Coast Guard is also unique to the other services, for it has two official flags, the Coast Guard Standard and the Coast Guard Ensign, which was flown from the top of the main mast on its ships. The current flag of the United States Coast Guard, officially adopted in on January 28, 1964, is white with dark blue Great Seal of the United States, with the shield on the eagle's breast has a blue chief over vertical red and white stripes. Inscribed in an arc above the eagle is United States Coast Guard. Below the eagle is the Coast Guard motto, always ready, Semper Partus. And beneath that, in Arabic numerals, 1790, the year in which the service's ancestors, the U.S. Revenue Cutter Service, was founded. All inscriptions on the flag are in dark blue typeface. All right, so just thought I'd share that with you. If you hung on, I mean, my goodness, good for you. I could barely hang on myself. So here we are at almost 24 minutes, and I guess every once in a while I'll do this. The password, if you will, is coffee. So if you put coffee in, I know you made it till the end somehow, some way you did it, and coffee is the key. So with that, thanks for watching. I appreciate you very much. Have a great one, and remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.